This is a phone I've been wanting to play around with for years now, and thankfully I've managed to pick up a cheap copy from eBay. And after exploring this utterly wacky device, I want to share that experience with you. This is the Blackberry Priv, and if I were Doug DeMuro, right now I'd be saying I want to show you all the quirks and features of this wonderful little device, because that's exactly what I'm going to do today. By the way guys, really trying to hit 150,000 subscribers, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that button, it would mean the world to me. Thank you very much. Firstly, can I just say that this design makes an awful lot of sense right now. It's kind of crazy. I thought the sliding screen would be quite top heavy and would throw off the balance of the phone, but apparently not. This feels just right in the hand. It's great. And secondly, much like the Xperia Play, which I also love, this feels like there's so much opportunity for one to be made right now with the improvements that we have to display tech, battery density, and tech density as a whole, to be honest. I would probably buy a 2025 version of one of these. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, so let's step back a bit. The Priv launched back in 2015, so almost 10 years ago now. That makes me feel very old. And it was the first ever BlackBerry smartphone to come with Android loaded onto it instead of the company's own BBOS, like what we found with the BlackBerry Passport. It unfortunately came out in the Snapdragon 810 era, and though this phone thankfully did not ship with that particular chip, it did come with the 808, the cut down 6-core version of this model. It still had the same kind of problems, battery drain and thermal issues. Actually, the Priv was initially met by sort of mixed reviews, with some outlets complimenting its functional and utilitarian design, its great keyboard and even its software, with others lamenting its curved display edges, performance and battery life. It wasn't universally loved or hated, but it felt kind of awkward at the time, perhaps due to the use of that particular chipset. It came with Android Lollipop 5.0 and then landed on 6.1.1 Marshmallow, which is what I have on my unit here. I paid about £100 for this thing off eBay. I'm actually quite impressed with the overall condition considering it's a decade old, and these were never really known for exceptional build quality in the first place. It does have one problem, my unit in particular, and that's battery drain. This was described in the listing, but I was happy to purchase anyway. No surprise that a 10-year-old BlackBerry doesn't hold a charge for too long these days. Alright, if this phone wasn't quirky enough for you on the surface, let me give you some finer details. Firstly, the lock button is on the wrong side of the phone. Yeah, it's on the left, and the right, the button sitting between the two volume keys, is actually a mute button that cuts audio when it's already playing. A bit of a strange one if you ask me. It of course comes with a headphone port and a microSD card slot, which these days is quite strange, but actually back in the day was totally normal. This phone was actually made in Mexico and it states it on the little metal piece on the back. Again, pretty unusual to me. The single camera on the back has a bigger sensor than all 5 of the first generation Google Pixel smartphones. And it comes with Qi wireless charging as well, pretty cool. It's about as wide as my OnePlus 12, but quite a bit shorter when it's slid together. The camera bump doesn't stick out nearly as much, and it's about 10% lighter as well, and that is something you absolutely feel in the hand. It's not dense or weighty in the same way a modern flagship is, and I'm sure that's likely due to the build materials used here. And it also helps balance the whole phone out when you slide the keyboard out and you start typing on the lower portion of the whole thing. It never feels like it's going to come away from you, if anything probably aided by the sort of somewhat soft touch back, which is in so much better condition than the rubbery one I have on my BlackBerry Passport copy. There were some things that when I looked at this on the listing I really wanted to try out for myself, and that comes in 3 different things. The keyboard, the camera and the audio quality coming out of that big grille on the front, and the also dedicated headphone port on the bottom. Of course I have to start with the camera, right? It's an 18 megapixel 1/2.4 inch sensor, so it's actually surprisingly good. Now of course you won't be blowing anyone away with these photos and this camera, but it does a lot of what makes great modern smartphone cameras without going over the top like modern smartphone cameras tend to do. So the dynamic range is very strong, but it's not crazy artificial looking. And the sharpness is good, but not clinical. Yeah, the Priv is not a camera specific smartphone, it doesn't have a shutter button or anything like that. But I honestly wasn't expecting it to be as good as it is. There is a good quality Ultra HD 4K video mode, that I think, if anything, it kind of lacks stabilization. Outside of that, the actual quality of the image is pretty good. I thought I'd check out the DxO Mark score for this thing just to see what they thought of it, and actually at the time of review, it actually snuck into the top 10 best smartphone cameras of the time. That's pretty impressive stuff from a Blackberry. The keyboard is, or was, the main selling point of the Priv. The beauty being you could have a normal full screen smartphone when you want to, and then flip out the keyboard when you want a physical, tactile, responsive experience. Just like the Passport I checked out a little while ago, this is backlit, so it does light up at night, and it's touch responsive, so you can actually scroll through web pages without interfering with the screen or compromising on visibility. That's pretty awesome. The keyboard in this also feels kind of quite a bit lighter, and actually that makes the keys individually easier to press when you're typing. The experience itself is odd to someone who hasn't used a Blackberry full time in about 13 years, but the way I see products like Michael Fisher's Quirks keyboard is like something for people who used to use something like this and have had to transition over to full screen smartphones, and not for people who've never grown up with that kind of thing or become used to it and just want to go on a full physical keyboard. It's a really strange concept. Actually, funnily enough, some of my time with this thing, which granted hasn't been too long, I actually found myself using the on-screen touchscreen keyboard when there was a perfectly good physical one underneath it. I'm sure I'll be crucified by Blackberry fans for that in the comment section. It's a weird audio setup this, so the headphone port is lovely to have, though I must say it's really not a particularly high quality one. But that speaker at the bottom is just a single unit. There is no earpiece hybrid, or at least I couldn't find any way to make that work. So the sound lacks any kind of bass and any kind of stereo separation, but it's really clear because the speaker is actually facing you. Not entirely sure what I expected, if I'm totally honest, but yeah, it's kind of like a loud, clear speaker. I honestly didn't realise I needed a phone like this until it was way too late. This phone is 10 Android versions out of date, and getting anything serious done on it is a complete nightmare. Not to mention the hardware deficiencies that I've already mentioned earlier in the video, including the particularly degraded battery I have in my copy. Roger Cheng of CNET reported that this phone just did not sell very well at all, and actually US carrier partner AT&T was outwardly concerned at the underperforming Priv at the time. I think the problem with this phone is that the one thing that makes it stand out is the keyboard. There's nothing wrong with it at all, but it came at a time where people more than ever were being used to smartphones that had touchscreen keyboards, and as much as the hardcore seem to love having the physical keys with proper feedback to them, it seems like the general public don't care. The same thing would go on to happen with the headphone port a little while later. As much as it sucks, companies have manufactured solutions to these problems that, to the general consumer, are a better or at least more convenient alternative. True wireless buds killed the headphone port, affordable automatic cloud backups killed the microSD card slot, and predictive touch text killed the physical phone keyboard. The Blackberry Priv is a phone that I always wanted to try, and now that I have, I'm really sad that I waited so long and that we'll likely never see another phone like this again.